Scott Paton, and we're here with Steve Dotto. Steve just did an awesome presentation on YouTube at the Social Media Mastery Conference here in Vancouver. So Steve, welcome. Thanks for chatting with us.
My pleasure.
So we have a couple of questions for you as far as being entrepreneurs and using YouTube. What are some strategies that we can do, especially as being entrepreneurs using podcasting? What are a couple of things that we can do to really elevate our listenership through YouTube?
You know, it's interesting, but when I started doing the YouTube channel, I was doing a radio show at the same time. Not on? Now is it on?
Now it's on.
Okay, we're going to start again.
Hi, I'm Michelle Abraham, and this is Scott Paton, and we're here with Steve Dotto at Vancouver, in Vancouver, BC, at the Social Media Mastery Conference. So, Steve, thanks for joining us today for a quick chat.
It's my pleasure.
Steve just did an amazing presentation about YouTube, and you're going to be presenting at Social Media World next month.
Yes.
So we're really lucky to get a YouTube presentation that was so good, and I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts on people who are looking at introducing podcasting to their business? How can we use YouTube to really elevate our listenership?
Well, you know, it was interesting. When I started really concentrating on YouTube, I was still doing a radio show. So I was publishing a weekly podcast that was just the same content as I had on radio. And I struggled a lot to try and figure out what the difference was between what I was doing on YouTube, because YouTube essentially is the same sort of a channel as a podcast, where people can subscribe, they can view, but and I know that a lot of people listen to podcasts on their computer. So the concept of a video podcast always kind of appealed to me, and especially when we look at things, we look at tools like what we have from the Google Plus Hangouts on Air, that sort of stuff. I think that podcasters should be looking at using video as an adjunct. Now, people often just listen to a video podcast and listen to even a hangout or something like that. They'll listen to it without the video, but giving them the option of seeing the video is really interesting. Now, it breaks your model a little bit as far as publishing in iTunes. You kind of lose that subscriber base, but then you gain the audience from what you get from YouTube. So if you are interested in podcasting, I would seriously take a look at utilizing just, a simple little double-ended Skype interview format, which is so easy to produce. You can get great quality. You can edit it together. You can use a leveler or something like that to get your audio levels good. And then you've got the two faces in the interview. And then you can, if you want to do a little bit of screencasting, you can insert some screenshots of the websites or photos or anything else. And you can basically turn it from just being a straight podcast into a video podcast, which opens some new doors. Now, I don't know what the details. I never really figured out what you need to do to really up the iTunes game on something like that. But certainly from the YouTube perspective, which I think is a far more democratic, and certainly we get a lot better statistics on how our product is performing on YouTube. I think that's nothing but gold. That used to frustrate the hell out of me. What am I doing on iTunes? I never knew. I had my download numbers, but I never knew how long people were listening or any of that. Whereas I get all those numbers from YouTube.
Those are such valuable numbers. So when looking at putting your video on YouTube, what are a couple of things people just starting their channels, what are some things that they should be implementing right away?
Well, making sure that you do your proper SEO work. And it's simple stuff. It's not, YouTube SEO is not like Google SEO where you're worrying about magic and, how am I going to kind of fool the search engine. It's all about delivering to the search engine what the search engine expects. So having a good title, having a good description, doing a good job of your cover art so you have a nice consistent branding through, so when people start to recognize you, especially in suggested video, those are things. The other thing is to create your content in such a way that it's compelling enough that people stay and listen. The biggest strike against you as far as YouTube is concerned is when people click on your site and click away right away. So making sure that you start out strong. I always advise people not to have a big, long 30-second 3D animated opening or any of that sort of stuff. Dive right into the content. As soon as people click on the video, hi, I'm Steve. Today we're going to be talking about such and such. Give them reasonable expectations right away and don't make them wait. And don't take the chance that somebody legitimate's going to click away. The people that are going to click away are going to click away. You're going to lose some people anyways. But you want to minimize that number, and that's going to maximize your opportunity on YouTube.
That's a great tip. So you've been in TV and radio like forever.
Yes.
So how long does it take you to do, let's say you wanted to do a 10-minute YouTube video. So you've decided on the topic. How long is that really going to take you? Because a lot of times people, I think, it takes years to come out with a movie.
I think the average person, it takes a little bit longer. I have an unfair advantage because for all the years that we did our TV show, I wrote the script, I would perform it, and I would always do it virtually ad lib. I would have I would have notes. I would have my top and tail on teleprompter, and then I'd have all the middle content just in point form. So I would actually, all the demos you saw on TV, I would do to time, and I would do them just cold. And I got really good at that over 15 years of doing that every day on TV. So I sit down, and it takes me about 2.5 hours from start to finish to do one of my YouTube videos. The average person, I think it's going to take you to do a good 10-minute video. It's going to take you the better part of a day, you know, depending on how you research. And I will typically, my process is, I usually decide a couple of days before I kind of putz around and look at the content, decide what I'm going to talk about, and then I don't actually, unless I have a real obvious hook that some, you know, I always look for something that we apply in the real world. Typically, I get the idea when I'm in the shower. I'm washing my hair, get ready to actually go in, sit in front of the camera and record it. I go, oh, and then I'll run through it a couple times in my head, and then I'll hit record. And I'll start into it. And once I'm through the intro, it'll take me 2 or 3 times to get the intro right. But as soon as I'm through the intro and I'm actually into it, usually it's just one take and I just go. And if I have a mistake, I pick it up. I don't bother starting again, but I do a pickup. Now, my style of video allows for mistakes. I'm very organic. I'm very real world, so I don't need that polished. I don't need my hair perfect. I don't need everything perfect. That's my thing. It might not be yours, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. But for me, I mean, I had one of the first days I had my green screen. My cat and my dog got into a scrap, and they knocked over the green screen in the middle of a take. And I went, "Oh, that's interesting," and I just kept going. And all of a sudden, you know, I had a keyed background, and all of a sudden, you can see my bookshelf behind. So it's, you know, but I think that my audience likes that, and and the fact that I roll with it and find humor in it, they roll with it and find humor in it. But that's going to be everybody's own individual decision on how they produce their content.
So you're saying don't be a perfectionist.
Well, if you are a perfectionist, then you're going to pay the price. I mean, the thing is, you know, we're talking about, for me, we're talking about delivering content that I'm not being paid to deliver per se. You know, I make some money off AdSense revenues and I build community, but it's not like I have a client that's going to be checking it and knowing.
That was a great point you made. You said, you know, my client, when I was on TV, was not the watcher. It was Apple or Microsoft or the TV company.
So everything had to be perfect for them because their marketing people were watching and they were measuring the dollars they were spending. Now on YouTube, your audience is your customer.
Yes.
So they're the only ones you have to make happy. You know, I don't care if Apple's pissed off at me anymore. That's okay. I say, hell, I'm pissed off at them half the time. So it's just fair now.
That's awesome.
Right. That's right.
Steve, I have a question for you about turning your subscribers into email subscribers.
Yes.
What's your best tips for that?
Relentless. Yeah. You know, always look to, the bottom line is, even though YouTube is a phenomenal partner, especially compared to Facebook as a social network, they own your list until you know, if they, for any reason, if you run afoul of their rules, if something bad happens, you get cut off. You can be cut off from your entire community, and that's a huge disaster. So your number one priority is always got to be to pull people into your own community. So getting them onto your mail list and then servicing that list. The money is still in the list. It's old school online marketing, but it's true today as it ever was. And you know, all of the spam laws, that doesn't matter because we should all be honoring that kind of. They're just realistic and responsible as far as I'm concerned. So I don't push it early, and I don't force it. I don't like the pop-ups and stuff like that. But I do ask every single episode in my show and on my online videos. I say at the end, subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my newsletter, and then I tell them why. You got to give them the value proposition. For me, I don't write a new newsletter all the time, but I do a lot of live webinars, and my webinars are really good. I give lots of good value in it, and I don't often sell stuff in my webinars, so people know they're going to get value. So I tell them, if you're going to come to my, you know, if you want to know about my webinars, you got to be on the mail list. And then, so that's the value that I always try and give them in order for them to trust me, in order to sign up for that newsletter. And it's worked well. It's grown.
So
grown to a reasonable
you brought
level.
up a really good point. Is you don't do a lot of selling on your content. It's content driven. So then a lot of people say, well, how do I make money? So that's my next question. I think I have some ideas, but how do you make money when you're giving away free content on YouTube to tens of thousands of people?
Well, I can't say for everybody. For me, there's 4 pillars. There's my speaking business, which I've had since back in television days. But the 3 new revenue tracks are AdSense revenue from my YouTube videos, which I do make money on. And it's increasing, and it's going to be significant within once you hit 100,000 subscribers or so, you're going to be making a reasonable amount of money. Not a huge amount, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month in that range, but it's still significant.
And it's also almost passive once you're there.
It is, but it is to the extent that you're being paid for your previous work, but you've got to keep
gotta
keep stoking the oven. You know,
That's right.
you're still shoveling coal into the furnace. You know, it's the coal that's in there that's burning, but the new stuff has to be in because it has to burn later and make your money.
Right.
So you still got to keep that rolling, but it will roll and it will peter off if you stop, but it'll be passive for a period of time. Second tier is traditional online marketing stuff. I sell courses. I don't do a lot of courses, but I do a few courses in vertical markets that I feel comfortable in.
Sure.
And then the fourth is the biggest surprise is I've built a community. Now, a lot of people will build a membership site. They'll build a membership site where they pour all sorts of content in and create a community around that site. That's a great way to do things, but then they're your customers. There's a new movement for content creators called Patreon, which in YouTube is actually building their own the tip jar that's very similar. But what Patreon is it's crowdfunding for content creators.
You had mentioned that, and I was wondering what you were talking about.
It's phenomenal. So what happens is you start and say, my very first Patreon pitch was, I said, I used to have advertising on my channel. If you give me money, I have to spend less time looking for ads, looking for revenue, and I can spend more time creating good content. And then people would give me $1 or $2 or $5 or $10 a month. As that's evolved, I started about 9 months ago with Patreon, and it's not so strong with content creators on YouTube. It's good with us, but it's really phenomenal for musicians, for artists, for writers, for cartoonists, for people that create serial content that have a community that will appreciate and want to support you and it is willing to support you. But I have that because
independent producers of content would love
this. It's instead of producing a gizmo or a gadget as Kickstarter would, instead you're producing ongoing content. But where the penny dropped for me and where I really started to see Patreon take off, and it's now already my single largest source of income. It will be able to support me by the end of the year, my whole venture. Is when I started rolling my courses in. So what I did, I took the courses that I would sell for $97 or $197, and I said, if you sponsor us at $10 a month, you get access to these courses and the new courses as they come out. So what it does is it evens it out because they don't have to buy that. They'll take a course that maybe they wouldn't spend $97 on, but at $10 a month, and the fact that they're part of the community, they're happy to do that.
Right.
And that's even things out to the point where we're sitting at something like $3,400 now, just 9 months into it, of revenue coming into Patreon, and I can see that by the end, that's just growing.
It's just growing.
And it's
now
just
spell that for us.
Patreon.
Okay.
And that's better than any other crowdfunding.
I'm gonna stick it along there.
Patreon / Dotto Tech is the one you really want to look at. That's
Go support Steve.
That's my Patreon page. But discovering, and actually I've got a webinar that I just posted today, which you might want to link to, which talks about what it is like building a Patreon community. Okay. Because it's it's for content creators, for podcasters. The one that got me thinking about it in the first case was Tom Merritt, who used to be with Leo Laporte. He left Leo. He does the Daily Tech News Show. He has 5,000 or 6,000 patrons to the tune of something like $13,000 a month of revenue for his Daily Tech podcast.
Awesome.
Or his is actually a hangout. It's a video podcast. But the bottom line is, it supports his entire venture. And the community that is interested, that values him, it's almost the troubadour internet. It's almost the fact we're a small community where you've created a mechanism for a small community to support you. It's not painful to them. $2, $3, $4, $5 a month. You get them on, they feel, and the difference is from having a membership site where people think that they are your customer. They become your partner and your supporter. And so the relationship between content creator and content supporter is very different. I have a very different feeling.
Very different feeling. Really good. That's going to be huge.
Patreon? Off the charts.
Yeah,
off the charts.
Great. Well, Steve, thank you very much for spending time with us. Appreciate
Especially
it.
On the cold balcony.
Before we go, if you had number one YouTube tip for everybody watching, what would it be?
If you're starting out and you're going to actually want to build a community on YouTube, come up with a schedule that you can adhere to make sure that your community a regular publishing schedule. Don't make it feast or famine.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Steve. Appreciate having you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Steve.